Hello, I'm Ben Cianchetti, and today we're going to be looking at a project I did on the post-COVID-19 business. So my first research question, my main one, was, is the pandemic changing the norms of our businesses? I was very interested in the effects of COVID-19 on local businesses, small businesses, big businesses, any form of business, because I wanted to see how it was affecting our economy and what changes in business would carry over from COVID 19 to after the vaccine comes out and after everything is, quote, normal. So, for context, a norm is something that is usual, typical, or standard. Um, so, an example of a norm would be, or breaking a norm would be screaming in a library or something along those lines that is against what is socially acceptable. So, a big example of an event like this that also changed everything was Black Death or bubonic plague. It was in 1347, and it changed all sort of research and our understanding of disease and bacteria. And it basically changed our society forever with how we dealt with cleanliness and health. And so I was wondering if COVID 19 would present something similar in the business world. So maybe instead of cleanliness and health, it would change policies and how businesses work. So I was very interested in this aspect. For my research, I wanted to interview people from all over America that were heavily involved in businesses or learning to be involved in businesses. I wanted the experience from different professions and different backgrounds. And I also wanted that area difference as something else to see what's similar in each area. So I had conversations with Peter. He is I did not put last names in this because I promised them I wouldn't, so they could be comfortable talking about whatever they needed to talk about. So my interview with Peter, he is a business owner in Vero Beach, Florida. He works mainly with landscaping. And I talked with Adam. He is a student at College of DuPage in Illinois, and he is studying to be in business. I talked with Dominic. He's a senior vice president of Lindy Engineering in America, and he's located in Houston, Texas, and works mainly online. And then I also talked with Kermit, who's located in Buffalo, New York, and he owns a local farm and cider mill. So, my conversation with Peter, I wanted all these conversations to be mainly focused around business and policy. So, what they incorporated, what they didn't, and what they found effective. So, he bought the business about 3 weeks into the pandemic, and this was different from everyone else. Everyone else is either working for a business or already owns a business, and they had to deal with the pandemic. He adopted the business after the pandemic, so that was very interesting. So he enforced mask and social distancing in the office. He offset hours of employees to distance start times. So, for example, each employee would start 15 minutes offset so they would not have to interact. And then he said he will keep social distance and offset hours after the pandemic. And he will be also adding extra sick days for employees because of what has happened this time around. My interview with Dominic, he said he works mainly online, and he can do pretty much everything online. He just finds it very not traditional and different. He is older. He's about 52, I believe. So, and Peter is around 30. So I wanted different age categories as well. He said that the shift to a pandemic business was very fast paced in his situation because It's a very large business, and he said this presented a lot of issues at first, but at the end they eventually figured it out and were able to communicate online effectively. And I thought this was super interesting because generally the older population is not very present online, and he said a lot of them were starting to understand and really enjoying the online aspect. He said a lot of virtual components of business, like Microsoft Teams meetings and things along those lines, will stay into effect after COVID-19 ends, just because they thought they were more effective, and it was a nice test trial. So health and safety rules in the office will be changed indefinitely. Of course, the policies could not be the same after this, and need to prepare people for something like this happening again. So similarities in these conversations I found between Peter and Dominic were permanent policy changes and the online world becoming a major aspect of business after pandemic. My conversation with Adam, he's taking online classes. He says he's been doing grocery shopping online, which I thought was very interesting. And he says there's a major lack of socialization between students on campus, and this could affect workers as well with developing socialization skills before they enter the workforce. And he found that there was a real push for students to wear masks among other students. So students are holding each other accountable. He says when he works as well, his workers hold him accountable. It's generally not the boss or professors telling you what to do. It's actually other students and people you can relate with. So I found that to be interesting because that would be the most effective way for everyone to integrate the masks and social distancing. And I talked to Kermit in Buffalo, New York, the owner of the cider mill, and he said pretty much everything stayed the same besides hours during COVID. Since COVID's not a major concern in his area, it's a very rural area. People live far apart. The grocery stores are pretty far. And not a lot of people are frequenting businesses together. So he did say that he enforced the mask policy, though, because he was in the older generation. He was worried for safety. So the differences in these conversations, the differences this time were rural areas behave differently, I've noticed, with the pandemic because there's not as many people interacting in close quarters as in urban areas. And then social effects on upcoming adults. So this is what I noticed when speaking to Adam, that a lot of people might not have the necessary skills going into a business background than they normally would have, interacting with people on a day-to-day because of lack of socialization and everything converting to online. So overall, I think the major takeaways I got from those conversations were the workforce is going to shift online. So little aspects at first maybe, and eventually I can see us having a big part of business being online meetings, just pretty much everything they need to do is online. And then only the bare necessities, the things you must come in for, will be in person. And then older generations are more involved in the virtual space. I can see this becoming a big thing after the pandemic. With all these older workers and the workforce learning this new technology, I think we'll see a big presence of older generations in virtual spaces, and this could change the way we hire and the way businesses work, essentially. And then a greater socially acceptable bubble. So when talking to each of these people, they notice that when they're out in public, It felt very awkward, even if they were wearing masks. If somebody was closer than 3 feet, it just felt disrespectful and rude. So, prediction was greater socially acceptable bubbles, which means the distance you feel comfortable with someone standing from you while talking or interacting. So right now, I was looking through a lot of different studies that were saying 4 is generally the accepted. 4 feet is generally the accepted distance where you feel comfortable talking to a stranger or passing by a stranger. And now, I was thinking probably more along the terms of lines of 6 or 7 feet. And here are my sources if you are interested in how the post-pandemic world would look like. Thank you for watching.